Hey everybody, Ken Plume here, and welcome to another edition of Force 5. This is the show where I have a guest on. We talk about their 5 favorite Star Wars action figures, any size, any era. They rank them, we talk about them, and a whole lot of other things. You may notice that what you're looking at is a little different than what you normally would see, where my guest would be in the other frame, but technically my guest is in that other frame, and we're going to be talking to my guest. Yes, there's the physical manifestation of my guest. So a little bit of background before I go in, just to introduce. Uh, since I started the show, one of the guests that I wanted to get, this is the first time my guest is hearing this too,
Hmm.
is in researching and coming across things as you do on the internet. I stumbled upon the YouTube channel Mighty Jabba's Collection and lost so many hours to that channel, watching so many great videos, not only about the collection that has been assembled, which we'll talk about, but also the 3D printing and builds and artistry. And it is a wonderful channel, and it is curated by my guest. So, welcome, Mighty Jabba's Collection, to Force 5.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to hear that you enjoy the channel.
It is incredible. It is incredibly fun. Is is what's good. As someone, we're of a similar generation,
Hmm.
maybe exactly the generation. So Return of the Jedi was a really big influence. Uh, and Jabba, for some reason, also is weirdly endearing.
Indeed.
So I want to hear a little bit about what sort of your collecting background and how it morphed into being so hyper specific to Jabba and Jabba related items.
Okay. Well, I mean, probably like yourself, as a kid, I just had random Star Wars toys and stuff, and I love those, the Kenner vintage stuff. And then at some point or other, I think when I was getting ready to go off to college, I just sold them all, and I was like, "Well, I'm done with these. Won't be needing these for the rest of my life." Little did I know. And yeah, I mean, I had like one or two, I think, that survived the purge, but it was then after, boy, after I sort of settled down, bought a house, and started, I had a kid for the first time. It was about 15 years ago, maybe. I kind of fell back into collecting again, and I've always loved Star Wars. So I started out just doing some random stuff. I had 6 scale figures from Sideshow, that kind of thing. Um, just random stuff. But then I was introduced to the concept of focus collecting, where you kind of narrow it down a little bit, and kind of appealed to me. I mean, I'd always loved Jabba as a character. The whole Jabba's Palace sequence, all the aliens and everything were fascinating to me. But when I heard about people who were, basically choosing one character to specialize in, or maybe it was one type of collectible to, some people do that. It sort of clicked somehow, right? And I decided maybe this is something I should give a shot. You know, maybe I can give it a try. The thing with Star Wars collectibles is it's just so much, and I mean, as evidenced by your shelves behind you, there's a lot of stuff, right? And it can be overwhelming if you want to collect everything. So it is
But
helpful
it's a
to
catch
focus.
22, because if
Mm.
anyone who dives into your channel will find, you would
Yes,
think that hyper focusing on Jabba related would narrow things down,
you would, wouldn't you?
but it really
Well,
doesn't.
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because I mean, it is focused in one sense, but it's insanely broad in another sense, because I have literally everything now, that has Jabba as a character on it. I just did a video about soaps and, you know, towels and whatnot. So I
which
guess,
which is odd. I mean, it's certainly Star Wars is known for releasing just about anything as a product and licensing it out.
mhm.
It's just astounding as a character. You would not, if you were to put money at the time on which character would have a ton of merchandise out of this film, Jabba's, on the surface level, not the most visually appealing of characters.
I beg your pardon. No, you're right. I mean, but that is the appeal to me too, because the fact that they've made so much for this grotesque character who is, I mean, he's not only ugly, right, but he is a gangster. He's a criminal. Smokes a pipe, or
Yes.
whatever it is. He's like
All the
what
warning
he's a
signs.
slaver essentially. That juxtaposition between that and kids' toys has always been fascinating for me. But yeah, there has been a surprising amount. I will say, when I started the channel, or actually, it originally started as a blog. Remember those things? People, it was just me on the internet essentially. I had almost no viewers or anything, readers, but I would just sort of catalog my collection there. When I started doing that, I had no idea that there would be so much, and it just kind of keeps going. And then once I discovered the 3D printing aspect of it too, in all honesty, I've kind of run out of a lot of the stuff. There's not a lot of stuff out there for Java that I don't have, but I can make my own stuff now. So it's kind of unlimited, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing sometimes, but yeah.
I don't know. Halfway through watching that life-size Jabba 3D print, I had to wonder about life choices.
Indeed. Well, you're not the only one.
But you saw it through, and
Yeah, well, at least to the printing phase of it. I wasn't able to take it quite as far as I had wanted to in terms of painting it all realistically and everything.
so
But
how large is that? So you did in
oh,
sections a 3D print of
I
Jabba.
did. Yeah. I mean, the idea was that it would be life size. I think it's surprisingly difficult to calculate how big life size should be, and then to translate that into a 3D print and cut it up into sections and have it really be the accurate size. So it's probably, I think in terms of his height, he's the right size, but his tail is kind of too short. But he's still gigantic, right?
And still trapped in your basement?
And still trapped in my basement. I can see him just a little bit from where I am. I'm in the basement now.
I mean,
But
looking at it, I was like, you could actually cut out a section of him and put in like cushions and make him a couch.
that's an idea. Yeah, I should look into that maybe.
Is there
I do want
Jabba
to do
furniture?
something
Because
with it.
you've collected. Has there been Jabba? Well, they had the
Um,
inflatable chairs, right?
well, no, I mean there was originally going to be like a beanbag chair that was planned. There was a prototype made for it, but as far as I'm aware, they didn't make any.
Or was that one of those
And
Think Geek April Fool's jokes that they were going to do?
um, they did they make one? I don't think they
I
had.
know they
I'm not sure.
eventually made the Tauntaun sleeping bag.
They did, yeah. And that's why I was kind of hoping that Think Geek, before they went out of business, would actually pull it through and maybe make one of those for Java, but they did not. And I don't think they've made any. They made a few like children's back in the day in the 80s. They had some Return of the Jedi themed furniture, but nothing specifically that was just Java. They had
So the
like the
closest he's gotten is
the sail
pillows.
barge and stuff. Yeah. What was that?
So the closest he's gotten is pillows, as far
Pillows.
as
Lots of pillows. Yeah. Um, Stuff like clothing, stuff like that.
well, I
But
can't wait to see you turn that into the Jabba love seat.
well, it's a challenge now. I'll have to think about that. I don't know if it would. I mean, one thing, and it's funny you mentioned that though, but yeah, one thing that the channel has kind of done for me is sort of broaden my skill set a lot. So I try new things. You might say that Java is my muse in the sense that I have all these Java themed projects, but they're all different stuff, all different approaches. Some of them it's 3D printing, resin, just painting stuff, all that kind of thing. It's kind of been nice in that sense too.
You've certainly been an inspiration when it comes to fixing 3D printing issues that crop up,
Mm.
as far as registration
Well, I
and
know you do
gaps. And
some 3D printing yourself.
I novice. Within the past 2 weeks, I've started 3D printing.
Oh
So
wow.
I luckily got in on the floor of where it's not just building an erector set,
Mm.
which was not
Yeah,
appealing to
yeah.
me.
The early days. I mean, I wasn't really there either for the very early days where you had to just make everything from scratch practically. But even since I've started, which has been about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, it's gotten a lot better, a lot easier. So I guess it's a good time to start.
Yeah, and I certainly have not dipped my toe into resin printing, which still seems very, very intimidating to
Hmm.
me.
Well,
Just the
it is and
the
it isn't.
chemical
Yeah,
aspect of it
I
seems a
know.
bit.
I know.
So I marvel at your resin printing. So
Well, we
what
might be
was
able to look
the?
at a few of those today. We'll see.
Well, I think then why don't we? Because it may crop up. Tell me if it crops up, but I'll ask what
Hmm.
was the first when you decided Jabba was going to be your collecting hyperfocus and muse,
Mm,
do you recall what the very first Jabba object was that you acquired?
that I acquired. Oh my. Well, I mean, obviously I had the Kenner playset as a kid. Um,
That was one of the things that was sold in the Purge.
it was, yeah. So I had to recollect that. I had many times over by this point. But the first, well, you know what? It is actually one of my items.
Okay, so we'll
Yeah,
save it for them.
maybe we'll
Identify when
save
we
that.
get to it.
I'll try and mention it when it comes up.
But I think we'll kick in then with the number 5 item on your
Mm.
list.
And I will say, okay, I do collect things other than Java, even for Star Wars, other than Java. But as I was thinking about this list, it just I kept coming back to Java. I couldn't really think of other things, so it's all going to be all Java all the time today. I hope that's okay.
It's
What we
your
have
list. It's
here,
not my list.
yeah, what we have here in front of us here. Do you recognize this?
I do not.
This is a Kubrick figure. This is a Japanese sort of, I don't know, Lego-esque figure, a little bit like the mini mates they made, similar to that, I guess. They made a whole line. I have some other ones from the same line here. We got
So sort
Boba
of they
Fett.
were generally blocky style
They're
figures,
blocky, yes.
but with like
You know, good for
attachments to make
tuna.
the like
Hmm.
basically Lego, a
They're
different sort
Lego,
of
but
variation of that
they're not
idea.
a they're not a building set, but they're very similar to the Lego minifigures, and the style is very similar, but a lot more detailed and ornate. As I say, these were Japanese, and I had actually been collecting Kubrick figures for several years before they came out with the sort of Java wave, I guess you'd say. They have all sorts of, in addition to Star Wars, they have just literally about any movie you could think of that was major, or even some minor ones at all. They would have a Kubrick figure for it. Um, and so I just like collecting them. They're kind of expensive, especially because a lot of them are blind boxed. So you have to,
Oh, we
you
lost
know,
your mic.
oh, can you hear me now? Hello? Huh.
There we go. You're back.
That's weird. I didn't actually do anything. What was I saying?
Uh, talking about how extensive they are before the Java figures came out.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I had been collecting it for a while, but and they're
And they
kind of
all
expensive.
generally have like a base that like the whole idea of them originally was that the base body was identical and then everything else was like an add-on to make them the
Well,
character, right?
I don't know if I'd say that with these ones because they're all fairly different. I mean, I guess you could say that they have similar bodies in some sense, but I don't know. You might be thinking more of things like the bear bricks. Those were all exactly the same and just painted differently.
Right.
But you can see these are all differently sculpted and everything. I don't know. I just really like these. And I've got a connection to Japan because I lived there for a number of years, and I'm a Japanese translator by trade. So I always kind of gravitate to the things that are from Japan, collectibles and whatnot.
I love the
So
stylization on that Jabba.
yeah, yeah. And this one you may be able to see was actually several pieces that you had to. It was like a build a figure kind of thing. So you can take it apart even still.
Did you originally
Uh,
have to buy them individually to assemble Jabba?
well, yeah, you had to buy. I believe I don't remember if these were all in the same wave, but you'd buy like one, and then it would come with part of the throne, and then yeah, that kind of thing.
So
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 that's
scale wise, that's probably what about half the size of the Kenner Jabba? 2/3?
oh no. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell without. I'll tell you what. We'll just bring out a
I
Kenner
mean, the one
Java. You can
other
see
great thing about your
he's
channel
gigantic here, right?
is the Kenner Jabba is the universal scale of measurement.
Indeed, it is. And yeah, you can see he's a lot bigger, but there's only about 3 inches tall.
But it is
But they're fun.
I love the if you could bring a little closer to the camera. I love the stylization of just the expression.
Hmm.
Like the one thing that you'll notice the more Jabas you see, and I wonder how much of that psychologically is the appeal of Jabba is just how much character is baked into the face. He's not a symmetrical character
Mm,
by any stretch of the imagination.
indeed. Yeah, I
It's
enjoy seeing how many different interpretations they can make of him too. Uh, it's surprising how many there can be and how different they can be, differently stylized and so forth. So yeah, maybe that's what I like about this one.
and beautiful. It's got more accessories than we generally see out of Hasbro releases now.
Indeed, indeed.
So do you, when you were just collecting before Jabba, was there a focus you had before that? Did you have a character that generally you also gravitated before the
Not
focus came?
really. Although I will say I did sort of experiment with doing a droids focus like C3PO and R2D2. And I did sort of start, I got, a bunch of stuff. Not, it was just like maybe in the period of a few months, but I soon came to realize that, I don't know, it didn't appeal to me as much as Java. And I don't know, they're a little bit samey, maybe the droids. They're not as much difference between the different collectibles, it seems to me. Maybe I'm wrong. But
Well,
yeah,
certainly if you're looking at
I,
those two types, like an R2 and a C3PO, it basically repaints, and occasionally you swap out a head
sure.
on
I mean,
an
even
R2
if you,
unit.
that's especially true if you're just looking at like 3 3/4 inch action figures for sure. But even if you go to like bizarro Japanese super deformed ones, it didn't seem quite as varied to me. So yeah, it's just Java just appealed to me a little bit more.
So what then is your number 4 choice?
Aha, well, actually kind of similar in a way, but let me bring these guys off, and that is this fellow right here. Recognize him?
I do, but I can't recall is that the why am I forgetting the name of those? It's the late 2000s stylized ones, right?
Mm-hmm. The Galactic Heroes,
Galactic
Java.
Heroes,
Yes.
which that was the
And
big lean in at that time because they also did an Indiana Jones line.
oh, they did. I have all those too. Yeah, it was fun. The reason I guess well, first of all, I'm a big sucker for anything that shows Java as being cute. So that's maybe part of it. But this came out at just the right time for my son and I to be playing with this kind of toy together. So we had like just an insane number of galactic heroes in addition to Java. Of course, we had like basically the whole line. They have vehicles and
They
all
released
sorts
a
of other
lot.
characters. Yep, they sure did. I got a few of them here. Just to, in fact, it's the same characters that I just had for the other guys. The Fortuna, um, Boba Fett, and of course the Gamorrean Guard.
I love
I
that
just find
since
these.
your focus is on Jabba and Jabba's court, your focus you get the same group of characters a lot.
Yeah, you do. But I enjoy that. I like, it's the same kind of thing where you see how they have interpreted them in different ways and so forth. So, and I like to kind of just set up a display, a tiny little throne room kind of display of each type. It's always fun for me. But yeah, these are fun. They did re-release these later on, um, when they kind of rethought the Galactic Heroes into a more of an articulated line. I don't know if you remember those. I can't remember what they're called now off the top of my head, but um, yeah, they weren't as nice. Basically, the paint jobs were not as nice and everything. So this one here, the original, is the one that I like.
It's probably the best representation of him with his tongue out in figure form.
Could be.
They
And
tend to
look at
be
those eyes.
awkward. Well, it
Those
looks
eyes
like, I
are.
mean, you probably we haven't seen a child. We've seen a baby hut before.
That's true.
We haven't seen a
An
child hut,
adolescent
so
hut, maybe.
theoretically that could be how Jabba looked as a
Maybe
child.
so. I like that idea. Yeah. But these were just a lot of fun. Incidentally, I've made videos about almost everything I'm going to show you here on my channel. So you can always, if you want to get a little bit more of a deep dive or into the background about any of these things, you can check those out. But yeah, just another one of my favorites.
I also love
Um,
on your channel that you also do spotlights of the extensive amount of characters in Jabba's court
hmm,
as well, because it's nearly impossible, unless you're really willing to dive into it, to chart just how many characters are featured in those
yeah,
scenes.
I mean, I don't claim to know it all either. I mean, I do these roll call videos, we call them, trying to pick out obscure background characters, and it's always a learning experience for me, just as much as anyone watching, I think, because I have to do research for it and figure out who is this guy, what's going on, how all the stories behind them, which can take a while. That's why I haven't been great about releasing them super regularly, but I do enjoy making those too.
Is there any character that hasn't gotten a piece of merch yet that sticks out in your mind?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. From the court, you mean?
Yeah, from the
Um,
court or the skiff battle or
I mean, there's quite a few that haven't gotten things in terms of like actually characters of consequence. I'm not sure that there are. I'd have to think about it, but there have been a lot. Let's put it this way: there have been a lot of very minor figures released for Jabba's palace for sure.
uh the now as far as the items that you have, what would you say is the rarest of all the
In
items
my
that you have?
whole collection.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's some items that are sort of semi one of a kind type things or prototypes, that kind of thing, I suppose. I've got a metal mold for the original Kenner Jabba figures head that was used to actually make the figures, that kind of thing. Um, got a little piece of the latex that went into the actual Jabba the Hutt puppet used in the film, that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know. It's pretty much all going to be stuff like that. Unlike some of the early Kenner figures, for example, there's not like by the time they got to Return of the Jedi, they kind of were releasing stuff in such volume that the commercial stuff tends not to get real rare.
Right.
So you're looking more at maybe prototypes and maybe conceptual stuff to do with the making of the figures, that kind of stuff.
Or would assume things that can actually, have a shelf life to them, like the food items
Oh yeah, for sure.
and things like
That's an
that.
interesting thing. There haven't really been hardly any Java food items out there, but there were the Pepperidge Farm cookies, which I did try to recreate with 3D printing. I did made a video about that. There was a kind of yogurt from England, peach melba yogurt that had Java on the container.
And he
That's
had
about it.
those
I mean,
and the molded candy
oh yeah,
containers, I
yeah,
remember.
the candy heads, sure. For some
Uh
reason, they don't like associating Java with food. Generally speaking, I can't understand why,
I mean, if any
but
character was made to
I
sell a
know.
product, it's Jabba. I mean, I
But
would if I saw a box that had that exact representation of Jabba on the front, I'd try it.
for sure.
That looks like a cheery cereal. Look, he's pleading with you to try the cereal.
Well, they did make, as a celebration exclusive kind of custom thing, they did make, what was it, Grape Hut cereal, one of those little custom cereal boxes. But yeah, there haven't been a lot of official things in that vein.
So, what would be your number 3
Okay,
choice?
well, we're going to
So
go a little bit.
we're to the middle of your list.
Hmm.
Was it difficult to rank them? Also,
Oh, I don't know. I mean, not really that difficult actually, because I knew what my first one was going to be. It's probably not a huge surprise, and then I just kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, I just decided I'll do it this way, and I'm not going to stress about it too much. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind midway through. My next item is kind of an interesting one. I don't know if that's focusing right. Can you see that?
it's focusing.
It's a
It's
tiny
trying to.
Java. Uh, this is
There we
actually
go.
more than several items in one in some sense. This is a Micro Machines Java. It came out in like 2016 or something like that. But the reason I thought this is interesting, well, first of all, it's adorable, right? He's just this
I mean, it
tiny
looks
little
like a
guy.
great sculpt.
It is. And the reason for that is that this is actually the exact same sculpt that was used in the larger figures. So we have this one, which was, I believe this one was released in the Toys R Us exclusive Rancor Pit set. And this one here, which you actually have behind you,
Oh yes,
is
the
also the same sculpt, just reworked a little bit, right? And so I like this because I think this is one of the first times I was really aware of how digital sculpting was affecting toys, because this is a digital sculpt that they just resized essentially, right? Back in the day, things were done by hand. You couldn't really make a tiny version. You'd have to redo the whole thing. But they can essentially just shrink this down, or, well, more to the point, they take the original one, shrink it down to this, and then shrink it down to this. And you can make all kinds of stuff with that, which, is kind of cool. I also really like these particular figures. I think they're nicely sculpted. Hello, Ken.
Would you say now what if, in your ranking of sculpts that you've
Hmm.
seen, what do you think is by far the most accurate, screen accurate sculpt?
Well, see, that's a tricky one. Actually, I have one over here. Just give me a second.
And what are the things that you nitpick as well? Like what are the things that stick out, like that are the automatic factors? If it's got to have this
Yeah.
to see they've
Well,
been
okay.
paying
So
attention.
this you may recognize as the Walmart exclusive Jabba from like 2010. This one is really good. I really like the sculpt on his face and everything. This is not on my list of my favorites though, because this is all sticky and gross. And basically, the body part here, because they made it out of this sort of flexible material, it didn't hold the paint well. And so I can't really recommend this one. But I do like this one. It might be the most accurate in some ways. But if you don't include that one, then I would say this one's pretty darn good. In terms of what I look for, well, there's always the arm tattoo right there. And there's the tail scar, which interestingly enough, they did not put on this giant one, but they did put on this one, the smaller one. You've got that. You see that? The tail scar?
Yeah, so clearly that was a note that eventually came down the pike.
I guess so. They don't see it. I don't think it's on the little one either, though. And he also doesn't have the tattoo. I guess it's too much to ask to fit it on something that small. But yeah, I've enjoyed these. These are, by the way, I don't think we mentioned this, but these are Black Series. This is like the 6-inch scale Black Series Jabba, and then this is the 3 3/4 inch scale version. This
We
is
re-
also, by the way, the one that came with Hasbro's sail barge, except that they prettied up the paint job a little bit for that one.
so we really haven't gotten a commercial release of Jabba in quite a few years, as far as
It's
generally
true.
available, because the sail barge was obviously very, very limited and very,
Yeah,
very high priced. So
yeah.
it's strange how many years it's been since we've gotten a Jabba release.
I mean, it kind of goes that way to some degree. If you go back to the vintage age, obviously there were what, probably 10 to 13 years or something before we got another Jabba after the vintage one. Um, Maybe, hopefully, they'll come out with something else. I don't know. I'm hoping they will come out with some sort of Jabba at some point.
With
I'm
the
also,
anniversary
I would
next
also,
year.
yeah. Well, I mean, they're indeed, and they released that, or are going to be releasing that the Fortuna Throne Room thing, which I have pre-ordered. And you'd think that would be an awesome time to re-release a Jabba, because you can just literally put that in there, and now it's a Jabba's throne room as well. But who knows with Hasbro what they're going to do?
Yeah, the only thing rarer than them releasing a Jabba is actually releasing his throne
Indeed, yeah.
to put him on.
There's very few full thrones. That's one reason why that the Walmart one that I just showed you is so good, is that it came with just the full throne and all the accessories and everything. It's just such a shame that it didn't really stand the test of time very well.
So as far as that Hasbro one that you mentioned, that uh Book of Boba Fett throne
Yeah,
that's coming out, what you would need is what, Jabba just packed with his railing and hookah pipe to make it his? That's
I
the only
guess
real
that's
difference,
true. I
right?
mean, they have. I'm trying to even remember what it comes with. It definitely comes with
Because the railing's not on
the
there, right? It's
the
just straight.
throne. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it only comes with the actual the bottom part that the so-called Rancor throne, the Boba Fett's throne goes on top of. But there are a lot of, even if they don't re-release anything, you can just buy. A lot of Jabas came with a railing just on its own, right? Like the Ultra Jabba, for example, the Clone Wars Jabba, they came with just a railing, so you could just plop that on there and it would work. So
If
I
you
don't think
were
it would be
to,
that hard.
I mean, if they were going to do a re-release next year, just because you've seen enough Jabbas in your day, you know,
I've seen a lot of Jabbas in my day.
and presuming that they're going to be using the sculpt they already have, let's just, you know, presume
Mhm.
that. So we would have seen that in the sail barge one. If you were to give a couple of notes about, hey, because I watched your video on the sail barge, and you know, there
Mhm.
was the hope that you had expressed that it would be the ultimate Jabba
Mm.
release, and there were a few things where it fell a bit short in that.
Yeah.
What are the
Um,
things that you would hope they would fix for like an ultimate anniversary
so
release?
I don't have the sail barge one with me at hand here, but it was basically just a matter of the paint job. They did do a better job than that. Like if you look at mine, I don't know if you can see this, but like even the nostrils are not really aligned properly, and eh, it's not great. But this is not really that bad. I mean, honestly, if they would just gave one of these with that as an expansion set or something like that, it would be fine. It's not that bad. It's hard to know with Hasbro how much you could realistically ask for, but
Are you a fan of
I,
them doing their attempts to do drool over the years?
oh, it's all right. I mean, you got to have a little jewel in your job, huh? But I don't like it when they have well, like the Ultra Java, which I don't have with me right here, but that was one of the ones where it's like got a permanently open mouth, so you can have a tongue sticking out. And even though the tongue was removable, he always has a sort of hole where his mouth is open, and I don't really like that. In fact, even with this one, I don't really like the way his mouth is always kind of open, even if you have it closed.
Which is must be nice
So
because the Micro Machines is the only one of those three that does have the completely closed mouth.
except for this one, of course, I made a custom version that has a closed mouth because it bothered me so much.
So how did you
But
shut it? Is there like a mechanism
um,
you put in there just to clamp it shut?
essentially, yeah, as I recall, this has been however many years ago that this really was released, like 10 plus years ago. But you have to kind of peel off the skin because there's actually a rubber skin on here. And then I just shoved some folded cardboard or something in there to keep it from opening up. It was not a high tech kind of fix, but
But it
I did
works.
I detailed it on my blog at the time. But yeah, it works fine. So yeah, these are fun. I recently got a email from somebody who was like complaining that they had gotten really expensive. These Jabas, like the 6-inch one, are apparently getting up there in terms of price.
They are ridiculous. The one back
Yeah.
there, I lucked in. I've been looking for 6 months to try and find one. I still haven't found any of the 3 3/4 scale at all, which is why none of the modern ones. I have the vintage,
Well,
obviously,
it's
right
not
there.
surprising. You mean you're talking about this one here,
Yeah, that or the Walmart
or
one, or
even the Walmart one? Yeah.
any of those
I mean,
are
part of the problem is that those were all sort of like they all came with
like
sets.
retailer exclusives. Like what? The
Yeah,
Rancor was the
that's Toys
other
R Us.
release.
Yeah, and that one, that was like $150 set, right? It came with a Rancor and other figures,
It's
and
painful to watch your older videos where you talk about, because a
I
lot of
know
those things
I'm
were
complaining how
remaindered
expensive it
at the
was or
time.
whatever. Yeah. Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
fact, there was a time where you could walk into a Walmart and it would have been like $10 just to move them.
Yeah. Well, I literally did buy like 6 of these guys when they were $10 on clearance, and have used them, for various things over the years. So yeah, it is a little bit too bad just how expensive things have gotten. Especially if it's like a kid or something who wants a Java to play with. Yeah, I do have a lot of kids watching this channel, and I don't know what to tell them. Because there's not really an affordable option right now.
Yeah, no,
Although
it's
I will say, I'll take that back. The most affordable option is probably the vintage Java still, because they made so darn many of us. They're not that expensive if you buy them individually. So I guess that's what I'd recommend. But we'll talk about that more
or the
later, I
Java
guess.
glove. They can get that Java glove.
Java Glob, yeah, but I would definitely choose the vintage Java over Java Glob if I had the choice.
So what is your number two choice?
My number two. Okay, this is going to require a little bit of preparation. Let's see here. Um, and this is the one that I was alluding to earlier when I said that this was basically one of my first items. This is a little bit hard to get in frame here, but this
Let-
is, as you may know, the Sideshow Collectibles 1/6 scale Java.
I know it well.
Yes. Oh, you have one?
I have that in his throne.
Yes. Well, I uh, I guess when I was just getting back into collecting, I saw this and I was like, holy crap, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, especially with his throne, right? He has the whole setup. So I ended up getting one. And this is before I had much of anything else in the way of kind of toys in the collection. My wife was thrilled, obviously. Little did she
It's a
know.
statement piece.
Yes. But yeah, I just really, really like this. It's actually, you're talking about the best sculpt. This is probably the best sculpt ever of Jabba. The paint kind of lets it down a little bit, but just in terms of the raw sculpting, I think it's fantastic. And they came out with a new version of this, of course, a couple years ago, which I also really like. But it's not a figure in any sense of the word, really. It's essentially just a statue. It's made of polystone and doesn't have any articulation, and you can't take it off the throne, basically. So I don't really count that as a figure. But this one is definitely a figure. It's made of vinyl. You can at least articulate his arms, and yeah,
It
it's
was
just
very
fun.
affordable for the time too, considering it's basically just a big vinyl figure.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was like $120 retail or something like that, but it's gigantic. I mean, my goodness, it's gigantic. And
It also
the
does
throne
something that a
itself.
lot of the sculpts seem to miss because they
What's that?
want to make him a little bit more balanced. Is that in the film he does have that sort of lopsidedness to
Hmm.
his side that's up against the railing.
Sure. Yeah. He's a strangely shaped thing, really. Definitely asymmetrical. He's got this gigantic. I don't know what it is in the back. This little
That's probably the
poofy
biggest
business.
bulge on any of the figures, right?
It may be. I don't know, but we'll get a little close up of him there. Just a big fan of this guy. I did repaint him. I have another one. I have got like three of these now. But um, yeah, one thing that happens when you're, I kind of like regularly will search eBay for Java stuff just to make sure that I'm not missing some incredible rare item that I have never seen before. But it also means that I will occasionally stumble upon things that are going really cheaply, and I'll be like, well, I already have two of those, but so yeah, I think
So
I got
since
one
you've
of these
already
for.
repainted him, you've done that customization. Is there any other
Hmm,
customization that you've ever thought of doing to him, to
to
that
this
particular
particular
one?
one.
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, you could try to do something um, more invasive, but I feel like that might kind of actually ruin it. I mean, I could see you maybe trying to put some torso articulation here, for example, or maybe even putting in some real sort of glass eyes or something. But that's a little beyond me, probably.
You say that, but I've seen the work you've done, and I don't think
Yeah, well,
I think you're perfectly capable of it. So between this and Sideshow's re-release, then
hmm.
you'd pick this?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, as a figure, I would definitely pick this. As a thing that I want displayed in my office, I would pick the other one, frankly, because the paint is just amazing on that one, and it's got a lot of presence to it. So, but in my case, why choose? I just have them both in my office, so problem solved.
They haven't really done a lot of releases beyond those initial Sideshow of his court in 1/6 scale. Like we haven't
No,
gotten
well,
like a Hot
none at all,
Toys
as far
in
as I know.
Fortuna, or they've never done Leia, they've never done
Yeah,
anything.
well, they did do Lando, which I don't even have. They did,
They just did the
fair,
skipper at Lando and Hot
fairly,
Toys, right?
yeah, yeah. I am hoping, fingers crossed, at some point, Hot Toys will come out with a Jabba. I would think it would be right up their alley. They do a lot of really ambitious stuff, but of course, it'll cost a fortune. So I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, Sideshow's getting up there too, so
It certainly is. I tell you what, when I got this guy, um, I remember I also got Bib Fortuna, and it cost me. It was on eBay, so maybe it's but it was new on eBay. 1977 was the price. Somebody was being kind of clever, but like under $20 for a 6 scale Bib Fortuna, and a lot of the other ones were like 40 and $50. And now, good luck finding them for you know
well,
under 200.
I was very lucky at the time that I was doing reviews for a site that I worked at the time. And so Sideshow would send me
Mm.
those. So I have the Jabba, I have the throne, I have the Bib Fortuna, I have the Gamorrean Guard, which is great.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, I've got a
1/6
couple of those.
the Han and Carbonite in his little diorama display nook.
Yep.
The Leia, I is that and no, that's right, it was a Metacom Boba Fett
Oh
from
yeah,
that era. That was the actual Jedi, only Jedi one available at the time, I think.
I see.
But yeah, as a display, I think a lot of the as you know, I'm sure you know from that period, a lot of the sideshow stuff doesn't hold up terribly well, just because particularly paint ops have gotten so much better
Yeah.
in the years. But a lot of their aliens work, like Bib Fortuna and the Gamorrean Guard, hold up very well.
Hmm. I agree. I still use them. I mean, it's not like we have a lot of choice for some of these things, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'd be happy if sideshow just stuck with the aliens and the human characters. I would rather they spend all their money and devote it to doing alien releases that it doesn't seem like Hot Toys wants to do,
yeah.
and to sort of
I
divide
am
it
I'm
rather
with you.
than having two versions of the same character from two different companies.
It does seem strange, especially when Sideshow ends up. Do they still
Yeah,
distribute
yeah,
Hot
they're
Toys?
still
I
the
don't. It's so
distributor for Hot
strange.
Toys.
It's so strange. But yeah,
Uh,
I think I'm behind that suggestion. Maybe you should write in. Use your contacts at
well, I
Sideshow.
mean, you did a bucket list item of mine in a 3D print. See,
Oh yeah.
the thing, I watch your videos because I have zero painting skills. That's where
Hmm.
my fall down is. So I look at and it's aspirational, and it's also something that's unattainable. But the fact that you have a 6 scale Max Rebo band that you
Oh
printed,
yeah. Yeah.
and they look fantastic. And it's something like that is a bucket list where you go, why not? Why was that
I know there
never
was
done?
talk. There was what I thought to be fairly serious talk of Sideshow releasing a set of the Rebo Band. You know, maybe 10 years ago, even people were talking about it, but it's just never come to pass. I don't know why. I think that would be popular.
Yeah, I mean,
Max Rebo is incredibly popular.
and yeah, he's back.
Indeed,
He's still an active character. So he's
he,
just moving
he,
from gig to gig.
he escaped
Yeah,
every
and he
time.
wasn't in that bomb scene in Book of
He
Boba
certainly
Fett,
was
so
not. Certainly was not.
he's still
It
out
was his
there
day off.
gigging. Please give us some more Max Rebo band. And I like that you. The other thing that I love how much research you do before tackling a project.
Hmm.
Like actually looking to figure out what the scale should be for the Max
That's
Rebo
always
band,
always tricky. Yeah.
because none of the representations we've got so far have been terribly accurate to what they should be.
Well, it's kind of like one of those things that nobody really seems to even know. Like everyone kind of has a vague idea of how big they should be, maybe partially from the Kenner figures or whatever. But in reality, if you go back and analyze the movie, it's very hard to tell how big they're supposed to be because they're never like next to anything really that you can definitely tell the scale of. So it did take some detective work for
Right.
that, for
But as you
sure.
said, knowing like Deep Roy is in Drooping
Right, right.
McCool, it's going to give you a
He's
basic
not going to
scale.
be super tall, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
he shouldn't be as tall as your human characters, your average human character, like a Boba Fett.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like the base scale that everyone's used has been the Kenner figures,
Hmm. I agree.
which makes them massive. Like the only one that probably is in the proper scale is maybe Sai, just because she's tall.
Main, I don't know.
Like, have you ever? Here's a gauntlet I'm throwing down.
Okay.
Just because you're bringing it, doing it
Hmm.
is, since the scans exist out there, for the classic Kenner figures, to print them in their proper scale. Like,
Oh,
how would the Kenner figures have looked for the Max Rebo band if they were in the scale that they are closer than
that
what
they
they
should
to
have
what they
been.
should be?
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting question. When as you probably know, I did uh, print the Kenner Size Noodles figure in the 12-inch scale, but I did it as if I was recreating the Kenner figure. Uh, Here, I've got it right here. Just
Yeah, the like and the Gentle Giant sort of jumbo scale,
correct.
right?
So like we can put her next to next to Java. Ooh, that, So she's actually really tall compared to Jabba, but I think this is accurate
So she's
for the Kenner scale.
in that scale, then she's probably what, about 7 inches? Eight
In
inches to the top of her feather? Like, how tall is she?
this actual figure here,
Yeah.
it's about 10 inches probably. Maybe even, well, geez, I don't know. Uh, low, less than 12 inches, but it's not that far off from 12 inches because the actual size noodles, in fact, I've got all of these like within reaching distance. It's kind of funny. um, the actual size noodles is not, basically the same size as a humanoid. You
Right.
can see that.
But that makes sense for how tall that puppet was.
I guess I don't. That's the thing. It's really hard to tell how tall. I don't think the puppet was actually as tall as a human being. In reality, it's probably more like 5 feet or something like that, 4.5 to 5 feet. But I don't know. I just kind of ultimately, I do try to get it right, but I also try and just make it look good too. So
Right.
I'm not going to stress too much about it.
But the 6 scale does, the research you did was
Mm-hmm.
impressive,
Thank
and
you.
fun to watch. So yes, at some point I would love to see
Well,
more
duly
properly
noted.
scaled Kenner figures. I bet they'd be easier to fit on the sail barge
That's possible. Yeah.
display if they were more accurately
I
scaled.
mean, you'd have to go back and like rescale Darth Vader and stuff too, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, has anyone done a, because you seem to be more aware of the prints that are floating out there,
Mm,
or the models that are floating out there. Has
yeah.
anyone done a sort of updated, more accurate version of Max Rebo's organ, his keyboard that has the actual horn section on it?
You mean aside from the 6 scale one I did,
Yeah,
or
yeah, like a Kenner style. Like if someone wanted to
Kenner
print out like
style?
more
No, in fact, they
accurate.
don't even. I don't even have the Kenner style. Again, here's what happens to be right here. Uh, they've never even made this one because this is very difficult to 3D model or scan or whatever. It's got a lot of intricate parts and crevices and things. So I haven't been able to get a model for this that I could print either, much less one that's more accurate. So yeah, unfortunately not.
Well, the models that you found, you're assembling it was impressive. Uh, so I think we're up to, we just did two, right? This is
That was
two.
number two. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're to your number one choice.
What do you think it is, Ken?
If I were to put money on it, I would think, only because I imagine behind you that they were just thousands of, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark
Uh
warehouse
huh.
worth of classic Kenner Jabba figures.
I mean, you're not that far off. Yes, this is my favorite for sure. My favorite, not only my favorite Star Wars figure, but my favorite toy. Period. I think, just for various reasons. I mean, kind of going along with what I was talking about earlier, where just that juxtaposition of the uh, grotesque and the weird and the criminal aspects with making it a children's toy, I think is really funny. And I just love the way they've done the sculpt on him, uh, in that Kenner style, where it's a little bit kind of, I don't know, almost childlike, or definitely kind of smoothed over, make him look a little bit more innocent, but also still very accurate to the actual, uh, you know, actual puppet from the movie.
Well, that's the thing I find a little bit interesting, now that Hasbro's been doing those retro collection releases of doing, like, what would be this, the Kenner style of the Mandalorian or whatever, is
Indeed,
that Kenner's style evolved immensely from that initial run of figures
for
to what
sure.
they were producing at the end of the line, as far as the detail of those sculpts.
Yeah, I mean that's why the speaking of Darth Vader, that original Vader that they never updated just stuck out like a sore thumb compared to some of the later releases because they got so much better, or at least more detailed.
Yeah, like that.
So
If
yeah,
if someone were to say, I wouldn't, I don't look at that Jabba and think of it as a simplistic sculpt.
no, no, but it does have something about it that's not super realistic either, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, obviously it's got, it's there's no paint. I mean, it is a single color. If
Well, no, no, no. There is actually paint on here. I don't know why they bothered to do this. but every Jabba has paint on his stomach.
Just a little highlight.
Just a little bit of a yellow highlight. Some of them are darker than others, but yeah, he does have paint there, and that's about it. I don't. I would not blame you for not noticing that,
But
frankly.
I think I figured out the one aspect that makes it not quite right when I see it.
Oh,
Just from looking at probably dozens of your videos and
mm,
wondering why does it look like not like it's so close to being a definitive sort of Jabba for that era, and it
hmm
seems like the eyes are just on the small side. Like if you
that's
just were to make
yeah.
those eyes a bit bigger and more prominent.
There we go.
Yes, can you take those eyes and put those eyes?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Yeah, I
if you
mean,
take the 3 3/4 scale, the modern one that you had,
yeah.
and just set it next
The
to that,
well,
and just look at
yeah.
the size, like that seems to me the only thing that really is the thing that gives it away as
I don't know if it's the size so much as you'll notice on the Kenner one, they're very kind of recessed, and they've got this sort of lids sort of surrounding them strangely. Whereas here,
almost like
he's
he has
got
like bee stings, like his eyes
yeah,
got
yeah,
stung,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
for
some
sure.
swelling,
I think you put your
or
finger on it.
he's super tired, and
Hmm.
it's just like Jabba, you need some rest. You've been looking out for assassins all day. There's no
But
Jedi gonna come. The Jedi are gone. You don't have to worry, Jabba. There's no more Jedi. You can go to sleep now.
I mean, I'm looking at this obviously sort of through the lens of nostalgia, and I'm not trying to judge it, as being a realistic Java scope. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But that's kind of endearing to me too. These little weirdness, little bits of weirdness.
Oh,
So
it is to this day. I mean, I remember having it as a kid, that it was just such an impressive figure and set to have as a kid.
yep.
And it was so versatile to have like an action feature built into it,
Hmm.
that just just I would entertain myself flipping that open and closed. There's something just satisfying about it's like one of those boxes that close themselves, uh
Too.
electronic things that people have, the little
Yeah,
gimmick
yeah.
things.
Useless box.
Yeah, that was the useless box of the 80s, was just
Yeah.
opening and closing those dungeon doors. um what do you remember, how soon after you decided to dive back in that you were able to reacquire the classic one?
You know what? I don't actually remember even getting the first one. It must have been pretty quick though. That was a priority, I think. And then I guess it was a matter of trying to get all the variants and things. There aren't that many variants for Java, but they do have different boxes and stuff, different regions. So I have got most of those now. Yeah, I mean, basically, well, again, this is going to sound like I'm making this up, but just coincidentally, I have this is the Mexican Lily Letty version of Java. That's about the only real um,
So what are the
alternate
main
version.
differences? Is just the
Well, so
materials used?
it looks different, yeah, and you can tell that the color of the arms is different. I don't know how if this is coming through, but this is a different color arm, and the biggest difference is that the head is very squishy on the Mexican version, whereas this one, if you try and just can't
It,
do
yeah,
anything.
it's a very rigid, uncompressible rubber
But
on
yeah,
the.
it's kind of fun to do that with this guy. There he is. These are not actually that expensive if you get them loose even today, so something to keep an eye out for.
But there's been
But
no variations
not like
on the
well,
throne
if
or
you
anything like that.
yeah, well, I mean, actually, the Lily Letty throne from Mexico does have a very small variations to it, but some figures, if you kind of look at the forums for Star Wars collectors and so forth, they'll have all these different variations on different figures with different, countries of origin and paint variations and all of this kind of stuff where they can literally have a line of like 3 dozen seemingly identical but actually slightly different figures in their collection. But that's not really something that occurs with Java so much, I don't think so. I mean, there are variations, but I don't know that there are any real official ones per se.
Do you remember the first time, outside of just diving into collecting, that you started to acquire additional classic Jabbas, or you started to get the idea of customizing?
Oh, well, actually, I was into customizing sort of at the beginning when I was doing the 1/6 scale figures because there was kind of a vibrant community of people customizing figures back before they were available in such good quality and stuff. People were kit bashing things and taking their own sculpts or commissioning sculpts and having all this kind of thing to make their own characters. Um, so, oh, you know what? Let me show you one thing. You may have seen this on Instagram. I posted it. Well, I don't know if you follow me there. Anyone who's interested in this kind of thing should definitely be following me on Instagram. But yeah, this is an example of that. This is a Faulty Towers Basil Faulty figure that I made from a. This is a Monty Python and the Holy Grail figure originally, and I had to. Let's see if I can get him. A little hard to get him close to the camera. I'll have to take him off the stand here. But
That
yeah, I
was
had to resculpt
Lancelot.
him. Yeah, and I just made an outfit for him, and then just recently, like within a few months ago, I made this base with the 3D printed Faulty Tower sign and everything. But yeah, that kind of thing I had been doing
It's the rat that
even
really sells it,
beforehand.
though.
Basil the rat. Um, yeah,
Are you
and
going to have
then so
a
I
moose head
decided.
behind him on the display?
Are you asking that because I do, or?
Oh no, I didn't know you did. So you do have it.
Oh my. Well, hold on. In reality, yes, I do have a moose head that I 3D printed and painted, so that kind of can hang behind him.
That is brilliant.
He
Well, now I'm hoping you have all the accessories. So he'd have to come with a bandaged head as well, right?
did, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what happened to it. I made one, but yeah, he can do his little funny walk with that on after he gets his concussion.
Do you recall what the first customization of Jabba was that you did?
Um, that's a good question. Honestly, I don't know. It might have been, it might actually have been the 6 scale one. Come to think of it, because I was a little bit dissatisfied with Sideshow's paint job on that, and I think I did definitely do that a long time ago, and then I branched out into basically doing all of the Jabbas that have been released, except for I haven't done actually I haven't done any of these ones. Um, they're I guess I probably should, but they always seemed sort of good enough that I didn't feel like I really had to.
That would be revelatory to
Yeah,
change them.
maybe it would be. I don't know. Well, the other thing too is that this one here, the bigger one, has got all this rubber on it. I wasn't sure how that would react with paint and stuff, so I didn't do it. But
So, of the customizations you've done, which one is your favorite?
whew, customizations. So just like repaints, you mean?
Well, repaints or resculpts or and same question for the 3D prints you've done. Like
Well,
taking that base, what is the most fun you've had?
it's funny you should ask, Ken, because I do have several of the ones that I made. In fact, if you have time, we can look at those. But
Would love
yeah,
to.
just in terms of like repaint, I probably the 6 scale one actually came out really nice. I thought. I don't have it here to show you, but I always thought that the Sideshow one was too sort of green. I always thought Jabba was primarily sort of an orangey browny kind of thing, with green being an accent color, but they've always leaned really hard into the green. And so I kind of redid that.
The sideshow one just seemed more monotone
Sure.
than anything else.
Yeah.
But that also, you could say that about a lot of the sideshow paint jobs at the time.
For
That
sure. Yeah.
there's only so many paint ops that they did.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable. I can get why that ended up that way, but still, I wanted something a little different for my sort of main display of Jabba, especially at the time. That was like the centerpiece of my collection almost. So I spent a lot of time trying to repaint that.
So if you had to pare all of it down to one item,
Oh God. If the house is burning, you mean?
yeah, what's the Jabba that you run out of the house with?
Oh geez. Um,
Because it could be anything. Like you said, you have rarities, you have one-offs, you have
I
things that
do.
you've
Yeah,
produced, you've had things that you've bought that people have one-off
that's
produced.
really hard.
I mean, you certainly could run out of the house and have a reasonably good expectation that you could get another classic Jabba.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I really do like that mold for the vintage Java that I have. The one where they actually produce the heads in. It's a metal mold, looks like a bronze statue. It's heavy, really looks cool, I think. So that, and it would be easily, something you could just pick up and run out of the house with too. So maybe that's one. I really do like that one. That would be one of the last things I would sell if I had, if I was destitute.
Now, how do you have that displayed? How do you
It's just in like an IKEA cabinet. I have a bunch of my prototype stuff uh, displayed and something like that.
do you have a
Um,
second favorite character under
Second
Java?
favorite character. Hmm. Well,
Like if you had to choose amongst his court in
right.
those scenes.
I really do like Max Rebo, although it's entirely basically on his design because he's not really a character per se. He doesn't really do much of anything in the movies, right? But yeah, I find that to be a very charming character.
Now, knowing that there's a
Um,
lot of controversy and
yeah,
differences of opinion about Max Rebo's design and what was intended and what exists,
yeah.
in your heart, how does Max Rebo exist?
Ooh. Yeah, when they made Book of Boba Fett and he appeared in there, I was like, bringing out a magnifying glass to try to see if they had made any hint as to which it should be, whether he has sort of a bipedal body or not. I didn't find anything there, unfortunately. But I feel like probably he just because look at all the stuff that's been made for Max Rebo through the years. Everything made by Hasbro, everything made, all the statues, um, especially the ones that don't have him at his piano, all have him with legs. So I kind of my feeling is that even though the original intent and probably maybe even as they made the movie, their intent was to have him follow that original maquette. Uh, it kind of morphed through the years, and once the Kenner figure came out, it was kind of over at that
Right. So
point.
ultimately, it was whoever at Lucasfilm
Yeah,
approved that design and went,
exactly.
yeah,
I mean,
sure, diaper, good to go.
Lucasfilm, well, like it or not, they're in charge of the property. They're in charge of Star Wars. They could have said, "Now, wait a minute. This guy's not supposed to have legs,"
Yeah, yeah.
and
Those are
or even
flippers. Those are
at any time during the intervening years, they could have done that. But everything else has been that bipedal design. So, yeah, I kind of feel like that's actually the way it is. But I understand other people. I get a lot of comments on my videos. They're like, it's kind of funny too because they'll anytime Max Rebo shows up in a video, they'll be like, "Did you know that actually he was supposed to?" I'm like, yeah, I did know.
there's just something so endearing about him just walking around in that diaper,
Yeah, I mean,
just
where did
getting
they
to the
come up with
gig.
that diaper? That's the question, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
That was
that
just
was the bigger choice, and then not on the original figure to paint it either.
yeah,
Like to do it and just like, but we're just gonna leave it as the plastic color. It's not gonna be to do it as a
kind of.
sculpted elephant. Sculpted elephant. That's a Freudian slip. A sculpted element, and then not to put any paint on that at all. That original figure was a
I'm
choice.
embarrassed that I can't find an actual vintage Max Rebo to hand, but
Oh, let's see if
yeah,
I can grab one here. Let's see. My desk is a little crowded, but he's never far. Now that I've finally, this was a one that again took a while to reclaim. They're getting hard to find in complete sets. There we
well, they're
go.
hard to find that are not all faded too.
Well, yeah, mine does have that fading to the arms and the head and
Oh, nice,
legs.
yeah.
But yeah, this I mean it's a really good sculpt, the element, but
The elephant element, you say?
yeah, the yes, the elephant.
Elephant
Uh
element.
but they did correct that for the Power of the Force 2
Yeah,
re-release when they
yeah.
did it. Then they went full white diaper on him.
Stanley Kubrick. Um,
And fixed his eyes, which was that's another choice that they made wholly for this figure. Was that
yeah,
really
yeah. It's a
prominent
little
pink.
strange, isn't it? But it it's a nice sort of complement to the rest of the figure. It'd be a little too blue without something there, I think.
I imagine it was just like a really late night gig, and he's just been playing for so many hours because Jabba just keeps calling encore.
Yeah, or he's just like he's right next to Jabba smoking or something
I
like
mean,
that.
he's a really good character for giving side eye when you're when you're posing him.
Hmm.
It's got a lot of character. So and again, much like Jabba, not a character that gets released that often.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, we
I mean,
haven't
that's
had
been
a brand new sculpt of him since the late 90s. We've only had what, two sculpts of
um
him because it was a re-release of that sculpt for the box
oh
sets that
yeah,
came out,
the
right?
Walmart ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true. Hmm.
So there's only ever been
Basically two.
two versions in that scale, and they never made a Black Series 6-inch scale
No,
release.
no.
They never did any other. So basically that and the Galactic Heroes, right? And Micro
Yep.
Machines. Didn't he get a Micro Machines
I
release?
don't think he did.
They
I'm
never
trying
did
to
the
think
band?
now. No, I mean they've done things like Hallmark ornaments and stuff like
Right.
that. I mean, I another plug for my video. You can go to the Max Rebo Jabba's Palace roll call, and I do pretty much go through all of the stuff that has been released for him. But yeah, there's not a lot. Oh, well, they did do the one. Speaking of the Kubrick figures, the Japanese ones, they did do him in this style. The whole band, in fact.
So
So
what's your
that's
favorite Max Rebo then?
my favorite Max Rebo. Ooh. Uh,
And you can count the one you made in that calculus.
the one I made is up there for sure, and also I like the Lego one. That's really cute. I mean, yeah, I wear that one. Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yes. Oh, and I was just thinking
Sorry.
about that Lego one, about how
Well, that's how I
I
react.
was lost in reverie of that Lego one.
Neat.
And how
Every
well
time
they
I
did
think of
that
it.
Lego one in the recent game, because they basically made they took their cue from Robot Chicken
Oh, did they?
in
I don't
depicting
even think I've seen that. What did they do?
in the game version or the
Yeah,
Robot Chicken sketch. Well,
I've seen the Robot Chicken, but I
they
don't.
leaned into the whole got to get to the gig thing,
Uh huh.
and any interaction with Max, like a whole mission you do, is trying to get him to the gig,
Oh, that's
and
funny.
that's his sole focus, is getting to the gig.
Hmm.
Uh, so
Yeah, I would say probably if not the one that I made myself, the Lego one, and I also have the jumbo Lego one that someone made for me, which was really cool as well. That I've shown off on a video before. Um, it's like 12 inches tall or something like that. So
so
3D printed.
so if you had the ability to request
Hmm.
one item that you would love to see them eventually make or do as a commercial release, what would you hope for them to do? What's your grail? Because now 3D printing has opened up all these doors for you, so it's kind of not the same as it would be if you didn't have the
That's
options to do it yourself.
true. That's true. Um, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure that there's anything I'm really dying to see. I mean, the only thing I would say is, and this kind of goes along with a couple of things I'm going to show you in a minute, but uh, I was really disappointed that the Gentle Giant Jumbo line never got their Jabba made because they actually made a prototype and announced it, and it was like coming soon kind of thing, and then it never took off. And it's almost comical because like I've talked to some people like who used to work at Gentle Giant, and it's like they sent the prototype off somewhere, and it got lost, and it's all this kind of stuff. So it looks like that's never going to happen, but and that's why I did end up making one
Well,
myself.
that would
But
be
that would be a
like
very
a
cool thing,
$400 figure
at least. Yeah,
if it was
it
made
would.
plastic wise.
Well, you could, I suppose. There wouldn't be the market for this, I suppose. But those ones back when they had the the prequel trilogy, or I'm sorry, the sequel trilogy coming out, they had like those giant um,
Oh,
first
like the
order
4 foot
stormtroopers.
tall Darth
Yeah,
Vader
they
and
they could use that technology and somehow make it, but they would have to make them in huge numbers, I suppose. So maybe not realistic.
but we can still hope.
We can always hope.
But then technically, if you're going to do it right, they'd have to do the jumbo throne, and
Yeah.
I mean
Well, I
it's not
mean,
the classic Kenner without having it be the playset.
well, tell Hasbro. I mean, they haven't done that since 2010 or whenever that Walmart one came out. I'd really like to see them. I guess that's what in a way, that Bib Fortuna playset that I mentioned earlier, the throne room, is one that that's the one that I would have wanted, I suppose. A really full on Jabba's throne room playset, even though it's not technically Jabba's throne room anymore. So I don't know. I guess I'm not really that dissatisfied anymore, which is a good thing, and especially because 3D printing kind of serves as a release valve or something like that. I can, if there's something I really want, I can make it myself.
Yeah, like if you want to make the twins from Book of Boba Fett, you print
Indeed.
them out and you make them up.
Why not?
Then you get them much sooner than figures could
Although
ever have been produced.
now that you mention it, I would love to see the twins. That would be another one I'd like to see, or
Is it,
even just Zero the Hut. Any of those other huts. We've never really gotten anything like that.
do you have a preferred scale?
Oh, probably 3 3/4 inch, just because I have so much other stuff in that scale. But I do enjoy the 6 inch Black Series quite a bit too. So it's hard to pick.
Well, hopefully
It's
we'll
just
get a proper Jabba release next year for the anniversary, because
fingers crossed.
it is a nightmare in the secondary market to find anything Jabba for anything approaching a reasonable price. And
Yeah, that's
that's
too
not
bad.
right. That's not right to have such a prominent character as that
I agree.
to be relegated in such a way. Uh, although I'm still looking for the I think my favorite Jabba appearance wise for some reason is that Clone Wars
I love that one
animated
too. Yeah,
style.
yeah.
There's something about how much character that contains in that
I love.
sculpt that is appealing.
Yeah, it's a great design for sure.
Did you ever do a repaint of
No,
that?
and I didn't really think it was necessary for that one. It seemed fine. So I was
Uh,
just like,
but he's one of those ones that follows that sort of style of the uh the top of the body matches up if he's in
that's true.
a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rather than
So
a
if you
sideways
want him
throne pose.
on the throne, that would be something that you could maybe
It doesn't quite line
think
up,
about
even though in the
repainting.
box, isn't he on the throne? Isn't he in like a
Maybe
throne
I don't
pose?
recall offhand, but I do think he
Even though
might be.
he's not made to be displayed that way.
Well, that was the way they did the Power of the Force one. Was they kind of on the box show him turning to the side or something, and it's totally impossible with the actual toy.
Would you say that's the worst Jabba in your
Oh,
collection?
it's a toss up. I mean, there's that one. There's the one, the water spitting,
Oh,
frog
the
spitting one from
from
Phantom
the
Menace.
right.
Yeah, one of those. Those two are probably the worst.
You did an admirable job on your customization attempt on that Power of the Force 2 one.
Thank you.
And it was shocking how much that figure seemed to fight against you doing anything to it.
Yeah, it's a stubborn one.
But again, it's one of those, I think it's just something in the eyes. Like I wonder if the eyes are really the one element of Jabba that you have to nail, or else
Hmm.
it all falls apart.
That's true. Yeah, the eyes in that one, if you recall, or if your viewers recall, were they were supposed to have be translucent, and you like. I guess the idea was that there would be some light coming in from behind, but they never included any kind of light piping or anything like that, so you really couldn't see it at all. Just didn't work very well.
And
So
they were so inset
sure,
as to also be, but I will say this, it was an accurate representation of
right.
what we saw in the film.
Oh
So
God, don't remind me.
so it's hard to knock it when they did a pretty good job being faithful to what was in the special edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that. So do you have any honorable mentions?
Well, I guess my honorable mentions will sort of just be some of my customs that I've done, like the 3D printed stuff. that I wanted to show that we've actually mentioned several of them already, but first one, these are all things I think that I've shown on the channel at one time or another, but we have this one here, which is a kind of prototype style one done in these different colors. This is resin 3D printed. I just thought it would be fun to do that because Hasbro has been releasing so many of these multicolored, quote unquote, prototype figures. I doubt if they're ever going to do one for this for Jabba, but it was an easy thing to do though. I just painted it instead of trying to like print it in different colors and assemble it. I just painted it different colors, but that was kind of fun. Do
And how
you
many
have any of
times would
those?
you say you've printed out that from that 3D model? And who is it?
Oh Lord!
The artist that did the 3D model?
So Desert Octopus actually, I sent him one of my Jabbas from my collection to scan. So technically, all of the Jabbas that are made with this model are my Jabba, which as it should be, I think. But yeah, Desert Octopus is a
Jabba
Mexican
Prime.
creator who has done a lot of scanning of classic, vintage Kenner stuff, and so he did that. He did an excellent job with this. Just this is one of the best 3D models I've seen. Just very high detail, and you could totally, especially if you're not looking at it super closely, totally mistake it for the actual thing. I mean, maybe not this one, but if it's painted realistically, yeah.
Which is interesting because the retro collection that they're releasing now, there's re-releases of the classic figures, are all done from scans as well.
Yeah.
But theirs are much softer.
Yeah, I mean, part of it might be the scale, like, the smaller figure is harder to get the detail on. But I feel like it's almost an intentional decision of theirs to kind of like,
Make it
I don't
slightly
know, make
different
it
enough to
slightly,
not be.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know why, but
But there is a sharpness to the scans that he's done. Like that does look like a production Jabba.
yeah, totally.
Now, how do
I
you
was
do
really
the
impressed.
eyes? Are the eyes painted? Do you even bother to do? I mean, as
Well,
far
for
as
this one, this is not, it's all just one color, but normally I do paint them. And then I'll put a little gloss over it because, of course, the original. Um,
had a bit
let's
of
see,
reflection to the plastic.
let's see. The original one has these plastic lenses. I don't know if you can see, but there's plastic lenses over some red eyes, and yeah, I just try to give it a little bit of a hint at that, basically. But this is a real one. But I have painted ones to look just like this, and
But it does. It
pretty
does look
close.
super sharp as a scan. How many
Yep.
times would you say you printed that out
Oh yeah,
over
you
the
asked her
years?
that. I at least, I don't know, hell, 20 maybe.
Because you've done jumbo,
No, more
you've
than
done
that.
mini, you've done.
30, 40. I don't know. That's a good question. I had never even really considered it, but a lot. He's maybe the most printed thing that I've done is this vintage Java. So yeah, in fact, everything that I'm going to show you today is a variation on that model. So the next item here, number 4, if you want to say, is this is a rainbow version. Well, the other one was rainbow too, but this is a translucent rainbow version that I just did for the hell of it. Basically, they're kind of like art pieces for me, I guess, in some sense. For this, what I did was to print it in clear resin like this, and then I kind of brushed on some alcohol inks in a rainbow pattern. But yeah, I'm fascinated by this. I've printed this in all different colors and translucencies, and I just find it really cool.
They're really beautiful.
Ooh.
I think when you did the video for that, you also did some some LED underlighting on it to make it like
I
a.
did do one. This is not the same one, but I did do one very similar to this, where I turned it into a lamp, and it's still in my office today. It's been going 24 hours a day since then, just with LEDs.
Is the jumbo version of that the largest you've printed the Kenner
Yeah,
sculpt?
yeah. In fact, I can show you that right now. It's way too big for me to bring over here, so I disconnected his arm, and that's his arm there. And you can
And the jumbo's
well,
all resin or mix?
no, actually, the jumbo here, this one in particular, is all filament.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just too big, to do otherwise. Particularly when I was doing it, I didn't even have as big of a resin printer as I have now. So, but
I
yeah,
mean, that's
this was
incredibly
fun.
large.
It is incredibly large. I mean, it's hard to convey this kind of thing on camera, but it's, he's the size of like a small dog or something, or maybe even a mid-sized dog.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I just have this vision of you doing like lateral slices and
Hmm.
doing like a nesting Jabba.
Oh yeah, that could
And
work.
how many layers of Jabba you could get nested within Jabba.
Hmm. Well, I'll have to write that down for future reference.
I mean, there's there ever point we feel there are no more worlds to conquer with Jabba.
And then I wept. Well, not yet. I mean, I get a lot of comments on my videos. They're like, I can't believe that they're using it as a compliment, I think, but I can't believe you still find things to make videos about after all this time. And I'm like, yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Um, but I guess that's part of what the 3D printing has done for me, though, is that even if I run out of stuff to do with commercially made stuff, just collecting it, I can actually make my own stuff, and there's really no limit to what I can do. So, like, one example would be the visible hut. This is a custom figure that I made. Has
Absolutely brilliant.
the inside as if it were an actual hut, although my knowledge of anatomy and hut anatomy is quite limited, so I just made something that looked kind of plausible.
Well, I don't know how
But
many hut doctors are going to call you on it.
honestly, I feel like in reality, huts probably don't have skeletons at all, and they're more like slugs. But it's just kind of a joke, right? And then I also made this box for it, and this is something that I sold. I think I sold about, how many did I do? Like 14 or so of these a while back. I don't know if I'm going to do any more. It was
Now,
a
how
sort of a
long on
limited
average would
edition
it
thing.
take you to do that, as far as printing,
Um,
paint wise?
I don't know. I mean, really, it's really hard to say. I did them all, like I did maybe a dozen at a time or something like that. So it's difficult to say. But it was more than I thought it would be, I guess, which is why I've been a little reluctant to make more. But it was
Is the
fun too.
interior print as like how many different components are in the are they nested within or are they within the print?
This is all just one print. It was printed like this, and then I just painted it essentially. So there's not any real assembly involved or anything like that. I just took the 3D model for the vintage Java and hollowed it out. I used a iPad app called Nomad Sculpt and an Apple Pencil and kind of just sculpted it that way, and then printed it out on a resin printer. And these resin printers are amazing. Honestly, they're they really opened up a lot of avenues toward me. Oh, I take it back. There is. I printed this. I forgot. I printed this part as one piece and this part as one piece. So there were two pieces that I put together, but
So
that's it.
so knowing that you could do something like that, and we talked about it a bit in the sideshow thing and what elements. So if you were to Frankenstein together the ultimate Java, because
Mm-hmm.
you've talked about ones that are like, oh, this is great except for this one aspect, or this is great but this
Right.
is missing the scar, or this is great. If you could make your ultimate Java using
People are
all of the elements.
not going to believe that we didn't plan this ahead of time, but I just happen to have right here a work in progress item. It's pretty rough shape right now, but yeah, it's along those lines here. So this is something that I thought about a while back. It is the Walmart Java. This has just got a very rough coat of green paint on it, so ignore that. But it's the head of the Walmart Java on top of the body of the vintage Java, and you can kind of like, well, you can envision how that would look on top of it. The reason I think that's a good idea is that if you look at the Walmart Java, he's so squat. It looks like he's been stepped on.
Right.
And the vintage Java's body has this real volume to it. So I'm working on maybe painting this up. It's just kind of been sitting here for a long time, but that's kind of what I would do, and I may turn that into a video later.
I mean, now people know that it's a potential. You can't not.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's funny. I actually, it was years ago on my blog that I kind of said that that was a possibility. In fact, I put, without repainting it or anything, I put the head on the body, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then somebody a couple months ago contacted me and showed me photos of, he had actually done it and repainted it, and I was like, this looks really good. I really should go back and do this. So I think I probably will.
Now, can you also, with the tools you have, add like the scar to his tail, to the
I
original Jabba
could,
skin tail?
sure, yeah, I guess I could. I didn't think about that. I mean, I don't. I'm not too interested in trying to like improve the vintage Java because I feel like it's kind of its own thing, and I don't really want to mess with that. But if
Says
I
the person who's putting the 2010 Jabba head on.
for well, okay, in the context of that, the Frankenstein, yes, I might
Yes.
actually do that. Yeah,
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 if you're actually Frankensteining what are the best elements of
yeah. That's a good
every
idea. I actually hadn't
Jabba.
thought about that. I could just use a Dremel tool or something like that and dig it in there and make a little sculpting around it. That would not be too hard at all. So
Uh
I'll give you a little shout out for credit if I end up doing that, because
and
I probably wouldn't have thought of it.
and along those lines as well, what would be the ultimate throne?
Ultimate Throne. There are a lot of good custom thrones out on eBay now. I found like people making them out of wood and stuff. They're not even that super expensive. So I mean, I think that may be the way to go. Actually, get one from one of these customizers on eBay. I don't have a good 3D printable one really, even now,
Now, is that just
that I
because
can
of
recommend.
a bed issue, like how large it would have to be, or
Well, not really. I mean, I do have big enough beds, and you can always make them in sections and so forth. But
is it just a
I guess
sculpt that you like? This is
eh,
great.
I haven't found one that I think is amazing or anything like that. I do have some that people have made, but they're not like ultimate by any means. So maybe that's where we could stand to do some work. I don't know. Maybe I should look into that. I also don't have a scan of the vintage Kenner throne either.
Which is surprising that that's not out there.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe it's just because of the intricacies of
Of the mechanism.
the mechanism and all that business. It's a little difficult to replicate, maybe, but
But I think that'd
a little
be
too
if you're
bad.
just going to do one that doesn't have that mechanism.
Sure, you'd think you could do that, but
Although
hasn't
you've
really happened.
collaborated with Desert Octopus before, maybe there's another request to throw out there.
Yeah, he's kind of moved on to some degree to doing his own custom figures and not so much like doing the Kenner stuff. It seems, but there are other people doing similar things, so it's possible that we could do that in the future. Who knows?
And you
And
have,
speaking of Desert
yeah.
Octopus, this
I was wondering if this was going to be one of your honorable mentions because this is
yeah,
incredible.
this you know, full credit to Desert Octopus. He's the one who really did this in the sense that he made the 3D model. But I did come up with the concept of, uh, putting the actual puppeteers from Return of the Jedi into the vintage figure as if they were, puppeteering it. This is this, if you want to, you can close it up like that. But I usually display it with them visible here, and you can see they've got one arm is a giant Jabba arm here. This is Toby Philpott. We have, let's see here, Mike Edmonds and Dave Barclay, and they're all doing their little respective jobs there. You can also remove, this is held on by magnets. We can remove each of these figures carefully. As you can see, they have their little monitors that they would use so they could see what was going on outside Jabba because they were completely enclosed inside him. And this is the inside there. We built this was kind of inspired by a documentary that was made about the people in Jabba, the puppeteers. I was, what was it, slimy piece of worm-ridden filth or something like that was the title. Yeah, this has been pretty popular. This one, unlike the skeletal Jabba one, I didn't actually make this to like sell to anyone. This is something that anyone can download the model for and print themselves. I made this one for myself, this particular one, and painted it. But
And then you were like, no more. This was too much work.
it is a lot of work. I would not want to do this for a lot of people, but it
Well,
was
anyone
fun to
who
make one.
saw the Bobby Moynihan episode of Force 5
Hmm.
a
Yes.
few weeks back, this is the custom that I mentioned when I shouted you
Hmm.
out about how incredible this thing was. This, I think,
Well,
honestly, I think was the first video that I discovered your channel with.
well, thank you. Yeah, I remember even like Norm Chan, who was one of your previous guests, I believe, retweeted me about this. So that was maybe help get the word out. That might even be how you found out about it. I don't know. But this is one of my most popular videos too. Did the one showing about this.
Well,
So
it is a gateway to all of the other wonderful videos that you've done. Yeah, I think the clincher was seeing the life-size Jabba job,
yeah, Jabba Job.
and just the emotional journey, particularly when you get to that part where you just go, well, this is never leaving the basement.
I've made
I'm
a
just gonna
horrible mistake.
assemble this thing because I gotta see it finished. It's like the Werner Herzog documentary.
Right.
At that point, it was you just getting that Jabba over the mountain. I
Well, I
would
did it, to some degree, I guess you'd say. It's technically finished.
It exists. Do you look at it and go, "Ah, maybe I'll paint it. Maybe I will paint it."
I do periodically think about it. Like the problem is, just to explain, it's difficult to paint some. If I painted it the way it is now, because it's made up of lots of different sections, it would look a lot worse, I think, than it does now, just as a white 3D print. Because you'd really be able to see those sections. So in order to do it right, you have to get some sort of gap filler, fill all those in, sand it. I know what it's like, and I kind of underestimated how big of a task that would be. Not even going into the whole, logistics of it all, like having trying to do that in my basement. Even the safety of it, the dust, the glue, and all this kind of thing,
Right.
and painting it right. I mean, painting it in
Yeah,
the.
you're
I don't think
talking
so.
about a commercial ventilation issue.
Yeah, I think for the foreseeable future, it's probably just going to be where it is as it is. But
Have you thought
still,
about ways to extract it? Like,
well, it wouldn't be that hard. I guess you just have to cut it up and then reassemble it, I suppose. But I don't. Where would I put it though? I mean, I don't have any place other than where it is.
it seems like it would be an amazing just lawn ornament. Like, oh, that's the Jabba house.
Oh right, yes. I wonder how that would
You
react
could
over
decorate
over
them
the years.
for the different holidays.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my wife is very understanding, but maybe not quite that understanding.
I mean,
So I don't
there's
know.
a guy in the UK that had a shark emerging from his roof.
Mm,
So maybe this could be just
just have them up on the roof.
the legend of the Java house. Oh, look,
Uh
he's
huh.
decorated for the holidays. Look, it's Halloween
I
Java.
have
Now
a
it's
feeling the homeowners association probably has a specific clause about Java ornaments. I'm not
well, if
sure.
they didn't before this,
Yeah. Yeah, you see those like very specific signs somewhere. You're like, there has to be a story behind this, or somebody had to have done something to cause this. That would be, yeah, the kind of origin story for
but
that.
maybe the backyard. Maybe it's
Maybe, maybe.
garden ornament. Maybe make it a water feature.
I'll never
Uh
say never.
it seems like it needs to be out there. Maybe we can get it to Dragon Con or one of the big conventions as a
Oh Lord,
centerpiece. Just haul it on
that
a
would be hard.
flatbed. How would
Yeah,
how heavy is
I mean,
it? Because
it's
PLA
not.
isn't light. I mean, isn't heavy, but the amount of that I imagined.
I don't know how heavy it is, but it's not like super heavy. It's because it's just a shell.
So it's more
You know.
awkward than
Yeah,
heavy.
for sure. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it's probably still 100 plus pounds, but it's not. That's not the biggest problem.
that's a good summation of it. That's not the biggest problem with it.
Hmm.
Well, I will show a couple of things before we go, just
Hmm.
because you talked about this. Another thing that's hard to find, and it ties into the whole the difficulty of finding Java in recent years was in I my childhood Rancor is long
Hmm.
gone, and I've been wanting to get a Rancor again, and the one I managed to find
Oh yeah.
was, I believe, your least favorite.
Yeah, it's not a
of the
bad one
Rancors.
really, but the paint is a little bit
It's not.
rough.
It's also not the most accurate
Yeah, yeah.
sculpt of the Rancor, but I love any figure set where your action feature for your main character Luke is just he comes with a bone.
Hmm. So you
So
don't have a vintage Kenner one?
I do not have a vintage Kenner one, uh, and it seems like the that playset they released was nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible to find now for anything reasonable.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
such a weird choice on their part. Like, we're going to give people a Rancor and a Jabba, but let's put them all together in an awkward set
Well, that's actually a repaint of the Target Rancor. So if you wanted that Rancor, you could get that elsewhere.
from the what mid 2000s or
It
when was it?
was 2010s, I think, and then they took that Rancor that was released on its own as a Target exclusive. They put into the Toys R Us one, but they're both exclusives. They're both a little hard to find because of that. So
Have you
it
ever
is tricky.
done?
That
Doesn't Desert Octopus have a Rancor scan now?
he does. I've done a little version of that. I wonder. I don't know if I
How
have
big
that
would a
here.
jumbo size
Oh
Rancor
God,
be?
yeah, I'm not doing that. I
You
don't
know
know.
what?
It would
Also,
be
you say that
huge.
now. He
Check
could.
back in 3 years or something.
I would think. Wouldn't he probably use maybe 30% more plastic than Jabba?
Maybe. Well, I will say the only Rancor that he's made though is that one we're talking about, where it's the Target slash
Oh, it is.
TRU
He did. So he
exclusive.
hasn't done a
He hasn't
Kenner
done
scan.
no, so that's the main reason I haven't really done much with it. Hopefully, someone will come out with a Kenner one eventually.
Maybe it's one of those things he needs a Rancor to scan.
Well, perhaps so.
Um, but yeah, hopefully we'll get a new Rancor next year. Wouldn't that be
Or even
amazing?
like a Black Series Rancor. Wouldn't that be amazing? Maybe they should do some kind of an event,
It
crowdsourcing,
I don't
crowdfunding kind of thing.
I don't know. Do you think people would respond to it?
Oh, I think so. I mean, there's no way I could possibly fail.
I mean, there's no way that it could get within like, $10 or $15 and then they decide arbitrarily just not to do it anyway, right?
No, it's impossible.
You
Impossible.
wouldn't just go, "Hey, this is close enough and it's clear people want this. Let's go ahead and do this because people rallied for it.
I know.
We're not going to just
I
shut it
mean,
down because we didn't quite make it. We're not a big multinational corporation with deep
uh,
pockets that can't just go, "Hey, let's go ahead and do it."
it's kind of like the Batgirl situation, isn't it? They do the where they canceled the Batgirl movie.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
weird when you make up your own rules for a thing and then go, "Well, we got to stick by them." It's like,
I
well,
know,
you could have
especially
just
because they even
you
kind
could
of
have extended it
changed.
a day.
They changed like what they were going to include as they went too. They like were tweaking it, trying to make it more appealing to people. It seemed like so they could have just said, "Well, man, we'll make it go an extra day or something like that." But
Yeah, I mean,
I guess
I
they
don't
didn't
want to
really
get
want to
into
do
the
it.
psychology or how people responded or anything like that, but it's just it seems like it would have been. I don't want to say something like a no brainer because that seems like it's a trite way to describe it, but it seemed like it would be intuitive to go. Maybe Malakili is a pretty solid thing to announce early on
I know.
as an incentive for this thing. Uh,
All of those stretch goals or whatever they were called.
like when
I
your
don't know what
first
they were
announcement
thinking.
was a bone pack, that's kind of
Phone
weird.
pack.
It's
I know.
that's not a way to goose your numbers. Go now with more bones.
fifty
Uh,
percent more bones. Yes. I don't
uh,
know.
now just looking at it as a work as a sculpt, were you impressed with how it looked?
Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. It's a little hard to tell. I think the a lot of it would depend on how they painted it. But I like the 3D model that they were using, and it'd be a shame if they didn't use it for something.
I mean, it exists. I mean, that's the other
Yeah,
thing that I can't understand, that if you've done all of the design work, like, try and make a go of it again. Why do these things have to be set, banished to some kind of phantom zone of design just because your Kickstarter crowdfunding didn't
I
work
mean, why
out.
did it need to be a Kickstarter type thing to begin with? That's the thing too. But I guess
Yeah.
that's a whole nother
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a whole it's
whole other
weird.
kettle of fish.
It's weird, but I'm surprised that we're going to be getting a Jabba's throne room not done that way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and now you can assemble quite a bit. I mean, are there any sections, because we got that adventure playset a few years back? That's like the Han display nook.
Yeah, yeah.
Now adding that to the throne, is there any section left to do, or is that pretty much what you'd want out of a Java playset?
Adding that to the upcoming thing, you
Yeah,
mean? Well, there's always more you can do. I mean, they have the kind of the little nooks with the cafe tables that the people were sitting at. The various people at the palace. There's the Rancor pit itself. They haven't really done
I'm
anything with
surprised
that.
you haven't 3D printed the door yet.
Yeah, so am I actually. Now that I think about it, maybe I ought to look into that.
Or the little or the door that Malakili and what's his face, the one who consoles him,
Yeah, what
are
is his
peering
name?
through, like Wolf something.
The Woof with
Yeah,
three O's. Is it?
yeah. The shoulder he cries on when he needs someone in his lowest moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh uh yeah, I mean, I would think as a playset, if you could just do the door, the little section of wall with the panel that Luke nails, and the little Malakili door, the access door, seems like a fun
Well,
little Rancor playset.
maybe there's hope for that because them doing the kind of throne room that we're talking about. That's pretty much the first time they've really done anything like that on that scale, in that detail. So
That
it's
wasn't
not
cardboard.
impossible. Yeah, exactly. I
Although
think
that
it's
cardboard
not
set
impossible.
was impressive for what it was.
Hmm.
uh
Well, cardboard has a lot of. It's very versatile material.
so as a way of closing out of the things you've done, because the one thing a lot of your videos talk about that I've always been curious about is uh when you're displaying things, do you
Hmm.
display to spotlight the item and you have a lot of items around, or do you set up dioramas and tell a story around how you, like, are you setting up full scenes of populated scenes with a bunch of
Well,
characters?
um, a little of both, I suppose. It depends. Like if I have the kind of thing where they've made a whole throne room lineup, then I'll set up a little throne room display, like with the 1/6 scale stuff from Sideshow, or like the Lego stuff as well. All that kind of stuff, I will definitely try and make it a little, almost like a little diorama. But other things, it's just kind of stuff on its own, I guess. Yeah. And people always ask me if I can do like a collection tour and stuff, and part of me doesn't want to do that just because I like to go a little bit deeper than that, instead of just saying here's a bunch of stuff. But the other reason is that I don't have it displayed particularly well right now. Like ever since COVID, it's just been getting worse and worse. I really got to do a clean up and rearrange my shelves and stuff like
Well, and
that.
your videos are a collection tour. I mean, you go through,
Yeah, they are. I mean,
you're
that's the
going through
entire point of
everything. It's just
the
not in
entire point of the
situ.
channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I understand when people want that, but it's not probably something I'm going to do.
And there must be, I mean, is there any item that is out there that you just can't get your hands on yet?
Hmm. There are a few.
And
The,
you don't have to answer if you think, like, I don't want people, if
nah, I
they
mean it's
find
fine.
it.
I mean, it might be they might find it for me. Who knows? But there's just very minor things like that. There's a series of sterling silver rings that a company in Japan made in the late '90s, and they had all sorts of Star Wars characters. I have Jabba, I have Bib Fortuna, but I don't have the Gamorrean Guard, and it seems to be impossible to find the Gamorrean Guard ring for that. That's one example of something and it's not like it's super valuable really, but
But right now,
I
there's
keep
someone out
looking.
there wearing that Gamorrean Guard ring,
I
not
know.
knowing.
Doesn't matter what size it is, I'll take any of them. Um,
Is there
I
anything
mean,
that you
that's
thought that you'd never be able to find that you eventually located?
yeah. Let's see. Well, the pajamas, the Jabba the Hutt pajamas, have been a grail item for me for a long time, just because
It's not
kids'
generally a
pajamas,
thing that survives.
it is not, they get thrown away or used up and everything, and but they're very nostalgic for me because I wear that kind of thing. I don't think I ever wore the Java versions, but I wore like Spider-Man pajamas or something like that when I was a kid, and it really makes me think of childhood. And the fact that they would put that on kids' pajamas, this character is so grotesque on the kids' pajamas is funny enough to me as well. But I did eventually find those. I got a couple different versions of those in the package, like unopened, which is super
A
rare.
shock. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, those were originally part of the Lucasfilm archives. They would have one example of every version of something that was released for Star Wars at some point, until they decided, hey, maybe this is getting a little out of control. So they just cleared it all out and auctioned it all off. And eventually it made its way to my collection. But
So the only people that have those right now are you and Steve Sansweet.
it's possible. I don't know. Yeah, Steve Sansweet, boy, he's an inspirational figure for sure.
Have you ever
He
communicated with him just to
I
compare
have not.
Java notes?
No, no, I haven't. I mean, I'm sure, not to toot my own Java, but I'm sure I have more Java stuff than he. uh, that's one thing I can say.
Well,
But yeah,
it seems like you're just, I mean, how close are you to finally just putting out the book of Java and just
yeah.
detailing your Java collection?
Well, Book of Java, that'd be a good name for a series. But yeah,
I'd watch a Java prequel series.
I would as well. I've
I mean,
been a
it's
little
basically the
disappointed.
Sopranos of Star Wars.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I think that would be a decent season, a decent concept for a show. But
Yeah, just him being
yeah,
carried on his litter through Mos Eisley while Woke Up This Morning is playing.
for sure.
Uh, so no, but seriously, I would look at a if you were to put out a book of your collection,
That's an
see,
idea. I mean, I don't even know what the. I
because
mean,
a
I
lot
know
of this stuff isn't
you've written the
documented.
book, right? You've written the DuckTales book.
Yes,
How did that come about? Was that just you saying I want to write a book,
well, that
or
was,
did
yeah. I
someone
mean, it was
approach you?
no, it was. Wouldn't this be swell? And then going to the publisher and going, do you think this would be swell? Could we do
Yeah,
this? And then the publisher finding a way to do it. Obviously that involves Disney and such, but there are folks that have done great Kenner Star Wars books independently because you're just
sure.
detailing collections. Um, but I can't imagine, having watched a lot of videos, a lot of videos on your channel, that there's stuff that people just don't know exists that just exists in your collection that it'll be fascinating to flip through and see. Like when you did, like you talk about the one that you just posted about the sort of bath products
Yeah.
that were out there. That's just fascinating to me. And to see, hook up, it takes to be beautiful photos and just the book of, again, this is the book of Jabba, the book of Jabba stuff.
Well, that was
Eh,
sort of the original idea behind the blog that I did, but kind of cataloging things, I guess. And yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. I wouldn't say no to that, but I'm sure it's a huge amount of work too. I probably have
well,
to re-photograph everything.
well, I would say that in the intro, until people can pick up the book, I would heartily recommend everyone who has watched this to go check out your channel, watch all the videos, go look at your old blog posts, go follow you on Twitter and Instagram, and
Yep.
it really is a fun, interesting channel. Just not only for the detailing of the nerd stuff of looking at fun, cool, weird Jabba and his court stuff, uh, but also I just the creative aspects of it when you're doing the 3D prints and the painting, and I can appreciate it as someone who isn't that skilled. Like, oh, that's neat, and I could maybe pick up some tips for things I am able to do in a limited way. But they're fun. Just anyone just wants to sit back and watch some making of videos and craft videos. It's a really
Hmm.
fun channel that you've curated.
Well, thank you very much. I do try to keep it fun and interesting and varied. I as someone, I say that having printed the vintage Java, God knows how many times, I keep using it over and over. But I do try to keep it varied. Even if it is like Java related, I'll do different stuff for, a different approach for it. So Yeah,
Well, you're an
I'm glad people like it.
inspiration.
Thank you very much.
I printed out I had to find and print out a tiny Jabba just as a little homage. You know, I don't know how many I'm sure I'll print out more Jabbas just for the heck of it. Because it's infectious to print out Jabbas and put them in I think maybe I'll print out a fountain Jabba for the backyard. That'll be my
Well, I
project.
would love to see that. Yes.
Like one of those one of those old childhood sprinkler playthings.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
just Jabba sprouts, just spurting water from his mouth. Don't I'm not gonna do that. I might do that. Now I'm thinking you could probably use the that spitting Jabba
Hmm.
that was from the Phantom Menace playset, and that would be perfect for a fountain.
You might be right.
But I won't do that. I'm not gonna do that. I swear to you all, I'm not gonna do that. I might do that. I might do
Narrator, he did it.
it. So where can people follow you? All the information will be in the description. People can click through.
Yeah, I mean, just I kind of I suppose my main things are YouTube and Instagram. I post a lot of stuff on Instagram that will eventually make it to the channel, but oftentimes new things will appear there first, and I'll do sort of like in progress sometimes photos of projects that I'm working on and whatnot. So, if you can follow me on there, that would be great. But also the YouTube channel, and I've got a Patreon if people are interested in that. Help support the channel. So all of that, you can find probably just by looking at the either the YouTube channel or Instagram.
Well, it's incredibly highly recommended that everyone do those things. And thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you. I
No, it's
appreciate we found a way to do it.
a lot of fun. Thank you very much. I realize this is not your normal format here, but I
Yeah.
think it worked out okay.
Well, it's good because this is the channel. Basically, they got a preview of the channel. They'll be seeing those hands a
If you
lot,
like my hands and you like a white void,
and you
you're
love
really gonna
Jabba.
like this channel. Yeah.
You've now got a preview of all the elements. But I'm glad we found a way because I was really looking forward to having the conversation with you and having you on the show, and I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoyed it.
And again, this is I think episode 13 of the show, and I still haven't
Wow.
figured out a proper way to end this thing. So
Mm,
I guess. Oh yeah, go like, subscribe. Is that what people say? People say that, right? Is that a
they do
thing?
say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and subscribe to
Ring the
me.
bell.
Go to patreon.com/Ken Plume. Ring that bell. Ring that bell. Do the things. And I appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think in the comments or just in life. Say hi. I don't know. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.